The Marlins were spanked 11-0 by the Braves. Brian Reynolds has signed an 8-year extension with the Pirates, the same AAV as Avisail Garcia. It's the Tuesday episode of Locked on Marlins, and we are going to look through the pain and into positivity with the UK GOAT, Sean Barrett.
You are Locked on Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked on Marlins. This, of course, is your daily Marlins podcast, and I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up on Twitter, of course, guys, at Miami Marlins _UK. If you are listening to the pod, hit subscribe. It is your team every single day, Monday to Friday, 5 episodes a week. It's not quite every single day, but every single work day if you work Monday to Friday. Anyway, there is a YouTube channel. Head over there, hit subscribe. Also, welcome back to the Everydayers. Thank you for joining me on Tuesday's episode, and thank you to Sean Barrett, the UK GOAT, back in the house on a Tuesday. This is actually being recorded on a Tuesday, so that's nice. Sean, how are we doing, brother?
Yeah, the rare Monday, Tuesday episodes, but we actually record them on the same days.
Yeah, exactly. Normally we do a double header and we just release them late, but this is actually happening on Tuesday, 9 p.m. UK time. So you're looking snazzy. Got the collar on. I know you've been off work today, so my sense is you've been enjoying yourself, perhaps.
There's been a glass sunk or two, yeah.
Let's go. Let's go as he sips one back. Guys, we've got tons to get into. I caught the game in full, as always, on delay this morning. 11-0 Bravos. Sean, I want to start with Edward Cabrera, though, because I must say, I was mightily impressed with Edward Cabrera, particularly the first time through the order. It looked like he had his full arsenal actually available to him for the first time this year. So, okay, things went a touch sideways a bit later on, but for me, there was definitely some greener shoots there from Edward Cabrera. What about you?
Yeah, especially that first inning. I mean, the second inning was ruined a bit by some defensive woes, but he had his command. He had, the pitches were there. They looked good. Yeah. The strikeouts, we was racking them up. Sean Murphy took him deep at the back end of the third. Yeah, he's been red hot recently. So, but on the whole, yeah, the early stages of that game felt good. But the big concern was that first run in the third felt like ball game because the Marlins just couldn't get anything going offensively, and yeah, it was a story that we saw throughout the game. They just couldn't touch Strider.
No way.
And as it was, one run would have been enough. Unfortunately, that's not where it ended.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, for Strider itself, I mean, that's one of the most impressive pitching performances I think I've seen in a long, long time, to be honest with you. He was just in total command. Of course, then it got into perfecto watch, and then there was a botched play at first base who ended up in no-hitter watch. And it was ended, the no-hitter attempt was ended by a Mean Gene Segura bloop single. I don't know, bloop's probably a little bit unfair, but it was the full bat flip from Mean Gene down along, I think, the Braves dugout as well. So he gave the boys the eyeballs and the bat flip, but Mean Gene breaking it up. No qualms with a bat flip to break up a no-hitter, right?
I've got no qualms with any bat flips.
Yes.
It was a seeing eye single, wasn't it? That would have been a ground out last year with the shift, I would imagine.
Probably.
But no, poked a single up the middle. At the end of the day, any way to get away from being perfectoed is necessary.
Yeah, that is true. Strider was immense. To your point, one run would have been enough. The Marlins could do nothing with Strider, which it's one of those games when you look back and you go, wow, 11-0. That's brutal. But it's maybe the day where, okay, the hitters, they have an off day. They're quiet. They don't waste any bullets, let's say. And equally in the bullpen too, there was some activity in advance of the game. George Soriano has done a great job, I think, at the major league level. Was optioned back down, and you end up with Nolan coming up. he wasn't expected to be pitching unless things went wrong. Things went wrong, and we got 3 innings of Nolan. Unfortunately, there was some Ian Happ vibes, I must say, on the broadcast, where Paul Severino, Nolan, his first pitch in the big league, and it just disappeared. Like, it got absolutely destroyed. He didn't even get the chance to finish his sentence before a ball exited. But the positive, though, you could see mentally that was out of his head. His mind was clear, and actually he pitched pretty well the rest of that inning, which is great to see. 3 innings, 6 earned runs. That might be the last time we see him for some time, perhaps, at the big league level. But overall, mate, no bullpen arms were really taxed. I know Okert got taken deep, and he's kind of working his way back in too. But, you look at it and go, the offense didn't get anything going. No wasted bullets there. Okay, Cabrera, didn't go deep, but he started well, which was encouraging. And they didn't have to use any of their main relievers either. So in terms of losses, it's not the worst way to lose in some ways, rather than being like close game, and you get beat out and you've used all your pen. This is sometimes the way to lose them, right?
Absolutely. It's one of those situations where you just turn the page and you forget about yesterday. And as you said, Edward looked good. I think if the errors weren't there early, then we might have seen a few more innings from him. The Marlins just got beat by the long ball. Okert got hit. Nolan, predictably, probably got hit. You turn the page. It is a case of the Marlins probably weren't going to get anything from Strider. The Marlins sometimes make average pitchers look like Cy Young winners.
Yeah.
But in this case, Strider is the real deal. And doing it on 2 pitches is just crazy. It is a case of what's coming and you just can't hear it. And the Marlins have another opportunity today. Unfortunately, the pitching matchup doesn't look particularly exciting. But for me, it's you forget about yesterday, you move on to today, and then you look forwards to Sandy tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. All eyes on Sandy's start on Wednesday, of course. Brian Hoeing going this evening for the Marlins, so he's back up at the big league level. Just one final one on yesterday's game. Strider, he's currently 3-0. He's got a 1.80 ERA. He's just had 8 innings with 2 hits, with 13 strikeouts against the Marlins lineup. He has to be right now the favorite for the Cy Young in 2023, in my opinion. I don't think there's anyone even near to him at this point, to be honest with you. Spencer Strider, boy, oh boy, the Braves have found another one somehow, and he is absolutely legit for certain. We turn the page, though. We turn the page. Brian Hoeing is up. How are you feeling about Brian Hoeing going this evening against the Braves? It looked a few days ago like this was likely going to be the matchup. I was feeling nervous a few days ago. I'm feeling even more nervous now after seeing 5 home runs from the Braves offense. What about you?
I tried to find some positives.
Yeah.
Because I am going to end up watching the game. So I needed something. And Hoeing's actually pitching really well in AAA. Now, I've looked at the lineups he's faced as well. And they're not exactly the Braves, let's put it that way.
No.
There were some names like John Singleton, who was once upon a time a highly regarded prospect that just didn't turn out. But it is funny sometimes when you look at these lineups that he's faced. But his strikeout to walk rate, 20 strikeouts, 2 walks, is the second best strikeout to walk rate in the AAA league. So there are some positives there, but you've got to factor in the people that he's playing against. So it'd be interesting to me if he can go 4-5 innings, limit the walks. I think he's got a chance to keep the game close. Obviously, the bats need to come in and support him.
Yeah.
And as you said, the bullpen is fully vested. We spoke yesterday about the idea that Skip's done a really good job of not using your big bullets when the game is lost. And you could just see it. The writing was on the wall for the 3rd, 4th inning that this game was going to be a loss. The fact that I stuck through till the end is crazy. These 12, 20 starts, I've got to say, not a big fan of my 1140s.
They are putrid, those 12-20s. I'm with you on that, mate. Not ideal for us, not ideal for anyone. And actually, the funny thing was this morning, it was almost this afternoon by the time I got around to it. I turned Twitter on, as I do, because I'm completely social dark as I watched the game, no spoilers, turned it on, realized no one was talking about the Marlins at all last night. It was just a non-event. Like, they clearly started the game. It looked like it was a loss. It was a loss. But the Heat were the main story in Miami and South Florida sports last night. So no chatter. No chatter. It just slid under the radar. The Marlins got spanked, but no one even noticed. And what most people won't notice either is 11-0 Bravos. Ronald Acuna Jr., the owner, some would say, of the Marlins franchise, 0 for 4. One walk, though, so we'll give him the walk, but 0 for 4 day, which to me absolutely stunned me when you see that kind of box score. Nevertheless, let's get into our first ad. It's our good friends over at BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp, and getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially when we're always growing and changing. And therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do until we talk things through. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched to a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge if you don't feel the connection. But overall, you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can work to your own schedule with flexibility to suit you. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/MLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP, I can't even spell, .com/LockedOnMLB. Let me try that one more time. Third time's the charm. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB. All right. Sean. Talk to me about Jazz Chisholm Jr. yesterday, because there was a lot of home runs flying over his head, and there was a lot of effort being made, some of which I don't think was entirely necessary. And I think Jazz ends up hurting himself on one of the plays. We haven't seen a ton where Jazz has been asked to go backwards, tracking heavily towards the wall. And I must say, it looked a touch uncomfortable for him. It actually was a touch uncomfortable. He ends up exiting the game. Jesus Sanchez comes in. That ends up costing the Marlins a couple of runs, actually, later in the game, with Jesus Sanchez, Brian De La Cruz miscommunication. But Jazz Chisholm Jr., overall, the defense, I think, has looked really nice since the kind of opening couple of games. But, it just is that reminder that this continues to be a learning curve for Jazz, but he's given it full gusto. What we don't want to see, though, is full gusto into the wall and then he's out for a month or two or a season. That's the main thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a case of he's going 110%. He's going, 100 miles an hour all the time, and he's throwing himself. I mean, I don't think there's been a single home run that's been given up by the Marlins that he hasn't gone up for. And all well and good. I mean, you want your centre fielder to be fearless in the outfield. You want them to make those plays. But on a no-doubter, which yesterday's where he hurt his hip, that was gone. You're not putting that one back. Like,
no.
At a certain point, and an experienced centre fielder would know that from the crack of the bat. Like that, you see those plays, don't you, where the centre fielder just stands still and watches it as it goes over his head.
Mate, he needs some Randy Arozarena. That's what I'm saying. You seen that one with Arozarena? He didn't move one muscle. I mean, he wasn't playing centre field, but I think he was playing left field at the time. But to your point, he knew. He didn't move 1 inch, Arozarena. So he's got to protect himself, Jazz. He has to know when he doesn't need to go as well, because clattering into walls is not going to be healthy for anyone. And I think yesterday, he kind of, again, this is the point, right? You're in a road ballpark, different dimensions to what you used to at Lone Depot. Next thing is, like, that wall caught him off guard. Like, he jumped into the wall like he thought he had a lot more space, and he didn't. It was like there on him, and bang, and he hit his hip, and the ball was miles over his head. Thinking, Jazz, what are you doing? Protect yourself at this point. Like, the game was clearly cooked anyway, but you can't kind of say that the effort isn't there. Talk to you about Luis Arraez, though, mate, as well, because we spoke about Arraez. Obviously, he had the game off. We're talking about resting his finger. It doesn't sound like it's actually the finger. It sounds like it was the foul ball off into the knee. And so yesterday was more of a knee issue, where he's saying he couldn't actually walk when he got back home after the doubleheader. there's a bit of trouble or a bit of history with Arraez's knees, not specifically fouling balls off into his knee, but we've got to be concerned 2 days in a row, Arraez not in the lineup and the Marlins offense sputtering a touch.
Well, that's it. I don't think the concern is the injuries specifically. I think it's just one of those day-to-day things. And he'll recover. It's just a bit of a stinger, a bit of a bruise or whatever. The more concerning thing, you're absolutely right, is the fact that this offense has looked atrocious without him in the lineup.
Yeah, it does.
I think Strider is 90% of that reason yesterday, but it is that case of the Marlins. We've said for years about how anemic the offense can look sometimes, and with Arraez being the lone guy that's been hitting all season, or at least in the early stages, not being in the lineup makes a huge difference. Someone has to step up. And we've talked to death the empty spots in the lineup with Garcia and Stallings, and I could keep going, couldn't I? The names are starting to rack up at this point, the guys that are still hitting 100. It's a concern. This team at the moment is a 500 ball club. It's a winning ball club, as I said yesterday. But the concerns are slowly but surely starting to become a real issue. And as we saw last year, it can go ugly pretty quickly. And hopefully that's not the case, but that's certainly where it seems to be trending. Or at least that's my initial thoughts from yesterday's game. If they win today, I'm going to yin and yang back to being positive. But that's the best thing about baseball, isn't it?
It is. The ebbs and flows, brother. The ebbs and flows. The thing is, if the Marlins are looking to upgrade or enhance their lineup, which it feels like they are missing one stick, at least. One stick, I think, is now off the market finally. Brian Reynolds committing to the Pirates. Finally, they get a deal done. And I love the play from Brian Reynolds. Extension offered. Pitiful. Request a trade. Come back, get a proper deal, get it done. Even though it's still an amazing deal seemingly for the Pirates too. It's $100 million. $100 million for playing baseball. $100 million, but still look very team friendly in many ways. So the Marlins, though, I feel like there was an opportunity for Reynolds at some point. Maybe not this offseason, perhaps in previous deadlines. They couldn't get a deal done. Perhaps at that point they were hugging some prospects and, hoping that, maybe Max Meyer would turn into something that he still could do. Khalil Watson could turn into something that we hope he can do. Maybe Blade at that point we were high on. I don't know. Overall, I think the Marlins will probably look back on any prospect package that was kind of talked about and have some regrets about not pulling the trigger on Reynolds, though, right?
Yeah, it's easy to look back, isn't it, and say, Blade's never really turned into what the Marlins had hoped he had when they drafted him that high. Yeah. Myers, Tommy John, obviously, when he first came up and he looked pretty good, we were really excited at the time about him. You can't factor that in. It is a case of these things happen, and it's unfortunate. You're right, that deal looks awfully team friendly. For all the mess and disruption that he seemed to be putting on the idea of I need a good offer or I want to go. In the end, I just don't see it. I think if you take the low end of his arbitration, he's earning 6 point something this year. You take a low number of arbitration of 8 and 10 for the next 2 years. Yeah, you're looking at a 6-year, $90 million in free agency. That's $15 million a year in free agency years for a center fielder who is a 4-5 WAR kind of caliber guy. Yeah, that's going to look awfully. It looks cheap now. That's going to look awfully cheap in 2, 3, 4 years' time when people are getting 30, 40 million in free agency. That's a super team-friendly deal. And maybe that's why Pittsburgh could afford to say no to so many trade offers. Yeah. Because, at the end of the day, they've got themselves a really good player, a really good price. Why would they trade him for a middling prospect? They wanted a real package for him, and the Marlins never wanted to go to that price, and that's how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely, great deal. And maybe this is it. The Pirates kind of knew, tentatively the range they were talking about, and they knew the range was agreeable to them with Reynolds, and so great deal for them. And maybe it's just a sign that Reynolds wants to, like he said originally, he wanted to stay in Pittsburgh, like he enjoyed it there. I believe he's got a 6-team no trade clause. We don't know the teams, but there's been some early leaks. I don't believe the Marlins are on that list. So, there's still time. That's absolute hyperbole from me, by the way, for those listening and thinking, how does Pete know this? He doesn't. I don't know anything. Let's do the final ad, and then let's talk about pitch in depth after that, because we have Brian Hoeing up this evening. Devin Smeltzer has recently started the game. We hope Sandy Alcantara will start on Wednesday. We're getting to the point, and the point of the year and the point of the depth chart of understanding who is actually the next man up in the next wave of arms, which we're probably going to need soon. But before we do that, this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at So Rare, and we've seen this one all over Twitter, guys. If you follow Aram Latham, for example, he is pumping this one up. It's So Rare. It's a new sponsor for us, and it's a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace, transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all the 30 Major League Baseball teams. Perhaps Brian Reynolds. Probably. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. It's free. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competitions and rewards. It's a twice-weekly game week with a 3 to 4 day cycle. At the end of game week, So Rare MLB managers who rank at the top or near top of the leaderboards win a variety of rewards. And this is where things get spicy. They include scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, and VIP experiences, particularly the one with Avisel Garcia. Prizes may vary depending on the competition or the market, perhaps. Head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's sorare.com/lockedon. Draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. All right, Sean, final segment. We're into it. A few minutes to go. We said a tight episode. This is feeling on script, on path, on time. Brian Hoeing is up. You feel optimistic, nervously optimistic, perhaps. I'm feeling extremely nervous, if I'm completely honest, but we'll see. The question is, and we still haven't had anything confirmed specifically, I don't think, about Sandy Alcantara going on Wednesday. We assume that he is, and let's pray that he is. The question starts to turn now of like, okay, if anything else happens, who's next up? And we're starting to really thin out a touch here. I'm not quite sure where they would go. Do you have any sense about, beyond Hoeing, what could be the next option? Is it Chichi Gonzalez?
I think it might be Chichi.
Oh, man.
One thing to factor in is he's not on the 40-man, so
okay,
it's going to need a challenge. If the situation required him to come up, then presumably a guy's hit the IL. But True. Yeah, no, it genuinely could be Chichi Gonzalez, which is a major concern. We saw him at spring training at essentially not major league level, because spring training isn't, once you factor in all the guys that are working through stuff. And in AAA, he's not really lighting the world up as you would fully expect.
No.
The Marlins, I don't think the Marlins have a next guy. I think, it is a case of the guys that are currently not in the lineup need to come back as soon as possible, because anybody else going down in that rotation, and I mean, we're already scraping the bottom of the barrel, but the barrel might be empty by the time we need a new guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people are getting hyped about Brian Hoeing for whatever reason this year, and I think that may be misplaced, to be honest with you. I'm not here to slander anyone, but I didn't like what I saw in 22. I do hope that he's had the Andrew Nardi experience and has gone away and worked on some things. I said that on the episode a few days ago, and the Everydayers tuning in will remember that. But you can't look past the fact he's thrown 12 innings, 17 earned runs in 12 innings. Like, boy, oh boy, it's not that encouraging against this Braves lineup. I think he's actually faced the Braves a couple of times, Brian Hoeing. So a couple of those innings that he pitched were last year around. But the Marlins are going to need Dan Castano to be back quickly. We need Cueto to show signs that he's going to be back soon. there's some signs of recovery from Sixto Sanchez, but we're still some way off from that situation. Like, I'm not talking Sixto in May, but, we could be September Sixto. Could we? Could we be September Sixto, Sean?
You keep asking me questions about Sixto Sanchez.
Oh, no.
I'm just done. I mean, it is, look, at the moment, if the Marlins are in need of innings from Sixto in September, then they don't actually need innings from Sixto in September because they'll be 20 games below 500. So it is a case of, Cueto needs to come back for all that we saw from him to begin the season. Rogers needs to come back. It is a case of we need our actual rotation to come back. Look, the long guys that they've brought up have been okay. They've done their job. The limited expectations that we have for them, they've achieved those.
Yeah.
But if this team continues to want to be a 500 ball club, then the pitching has to become healthier because it's getting very thin right now.
Definitely. It has to get healthier and it has to get better too, mate. Like, we can't ignore the fact that Eddie Cabrera he's not been the best out of the blocks. It's been a bit of a struggle. Like we said in this episode, there's some green shoots. We can't look past the fact that the last two Jesus Luzardo starts have not been good, not been deep into games, not been as sharp. He started on fire. There's definitely a couple of average at best outings. We need Luzardo. We need Trevor Rogers to be back. Edward Cabrera needs to find the consistency. Sandy hasn't had a great start either. Like, this rotation has really underwhelmed overall thus far. And I know it's been a bit dinged up, but the guys that we expect to deliver quality innings thus far, I think, have underwhelmed. And for the Marlins to be one game over 500 with the schedule that they've had, I think is a big win, showing what the other parts of the team have been doing. But, things can turn around quickly, and all of a sudden a 4-game series in Atlanta can really put it's the stress test on everything. And this could get out of hand, but we'll wait to see. I'm not going to say that's going to happen. What I am going to say is, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day, guys. It could be your last listen. I don't know, but I appreciate it. And I appreciate Sean Barrett for hopping back on as well. 2 days on the spin, a double header there for Sean Barrett. Guys, I won't be back tomorrow. There is no episode tomorrow. Just to call it out now, scheduling notes. I am at a work conference all day. So I'm out. I won't even be able to see tonight's game. That may be a good thing, but I won't be able to see it. So I will not be watching the game. I'll be box score to slander the Braves. I'll be back on Thursday, straight after the game. So it's a UK friendly on Thursday. So straight after the game, I'm hitting it up. And I wanted to... Kevin Barral is in the house. Fish Stripes alum Kevin Barral is joining the show straight after the game on Thursday. So look forward to that one, guys. In the meantime, thanks again, and we'll see you Thursday.